Welcome back. Well, it looks like the diplomatic temperature is rising a little between the United States and our government after the presidency said last night President Cyril Ramaphosa would not hand over the presidency of the G20 to a junior American official. It seems the US had asked if their acting ambassador to South Africa could receive the presidency after their president, Donald Trump, said none of his officials would attend. Traditionally, the G20 presidency has been handed over to the leader of the next country at the end of the summit. So, normally, in normal times, Ramaphosa would hand it over to the US president. Instead, Trump has decided to boycott the event. I'm joined now by the risk analyst, former diplomat, former ambassador, Dr Kingsley Makhubela. Mr. Ambassador, good afternoon to you. I really do appreciate the time. So, the US says, would it be okay if this really junior official comes to accept this? And our presidency says no. Is the US being deliberately insulting?
Stephen, good afternoon, and thanks very much for the opportunity to share my views on this matter. I think South Africa should play this very carefully. The Americans are now in control of the behavior. South Africa should be in control of the narrative and the communication. In this case, whoever sits behind the US flag represents the United States. And I think South Africa should not get into that direction. And South Africa should decide the level of handover. South Africa has the opportunity to downgrade the handover, do the handover in an obscured office, or delegate that to some junior official who will do that in return. That is absolutely within the control of South Africa. But really to start arguing about handing over to what level is neither here nor there, because a representative of the state has all the powers that anyone can have. So I think South Africa should be very careful about that kind of a narrative.
I suppose it may also depend, you will be the expert on this, not me, what your actual aim is. So if, for example, South Africa's aim was, we'll do anything for a good trade deal with the United States, then maybe you would say, sure, whatever. If what your actual aim is to try and isolate the Trump administration and to hope that some G20 countries will join you in that, I mean, wouldn't you respond in a different way? Does it depend on what we really want to achieve here? And that's quite a complicated question, I imagine.
Stephen, the power asymmetry between South Africa and the United States is so huge. South Africa's strength lies in soft diplomacy, not in a cohesive behavior. And South Africa should stick to that. Because if South Africa were to really go hand-to-hand combat with the United States, South Africa will be the loser. And the rest of the G7 who are here, they're unlikely to take South Africa's side. There's a strategic alliance that exists between the G7 countries. So South Africa should be very careful about that the support for South Africa does not necessarily mean ostracizing the United States. So South Africa should not misinterpret that being supported necessarily means that the rest of the world would ostracize the United States. It's unlikely to happen. The United Kingdom is the next to be part of the Troika, and it's the host after the United States. So it will carefully play its card on this issue. So you're unlikely to see this confrontation. And therefore, South Africa should not behave in a manner that would isolate itself during this G20.
So all of that's fine, but I mean, does that mean you just, give in to Donald Trump all the time? I mean, he's lied about our country. He's been incredibly offensive about our country. He's lied about other countries around the world too. I mean, do we just say, okay, because you're the president of the United States, you can do whatever you want? Because if that's the case, the same would go for China or Russia, any country bigger than us.
No, Stephen, deal with the misinformation that the United States is peddling. And what is very interesting, I've seen President Macron has come out quite openly to say there's no genocide in South Africa. Where are the rest of the other G7 members? Have they come out openly about this matter? Because at the core of Donald Trump is this question of genocide. They are not pronouncing themselves on this issue. I think South Africa should deal with the misinformation, the substance of what is happening in South Africa, and showcase what's happening in South Africa, instead of getting into a fight with the United States using terminologies that are unpalatable. I mean, I've seen last week too, the communication is starting to deteriorate from South African side. If you find top diplomats starting to categorize the US president as a white supremacist, it's very serious concerning, because we've had a fight around this terminology before when the ambassador was withdrawn. But if you start to see this factoring into the diplomatic language, it can be said by ordinary people, but our diplomats should really nuance their language and be able to communicate the message without being insultive.
Well, and if the truth is insulting, I mean, I suppose this is why you're a diplomat and I'm not. Sometimes a diplomat can't be entirely truthful. I mean, that's kind of the issue. We need to manage this.
We need to focus on issues. And that's why my view, Stephen, is that the country should not lose the communication narrative. Let the country control the communication to explain what's going on and to showcase what's happening in this country without using a language that would divert everyone to look at why is South Africa categorizing the United States president in this manner.
Sure.
Is it acceptable, not acceptable? Let's speak about issues. And that's one thing that South Africa controls the narrative. The behavior of South Africa does not control the behavior of the United States, but we can control the communication to the United States and to the general public around the world.
Okay. President Ramaphosa suggested last night that the US might want to come to the G20 after all. And I mean, my own uninformed view was that he was being a bit mischievous, that he was putting a little bit of pressure on the White House. How did you see that?
You know, the president was quite emphatic to say, in whatever form or shape, if the form of participation is only limited to the handover, that's a form of participation. He never prescribed what participation the United States should take. And it was really unfortunate to see the press secretary of the White House using the language that she used to describe the president. And I think we shouldn't get into that. We should take this advice from Michelle Obama that when they go high, we go low. And when they go low, we go high. So it's an advice that is very useful, because our strength, Stephen, lies in soft diplomacy and soft power. We don't have cohesive power, and we have no ability to do that. And I think we have no interest even to start venturing into a cohesive power. But the soft power would give us the moral high ground over what is being punted around by the United States administration.
There's another issue around all of this, and earlier this week our International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola made an interesting question. He suggested the G20 could be an opportunity for the world to decide whether it needs to start sort of living without the US. That's not a direct quote, he used more diplomatic language. But I mean, at some point, is the world going to have to, or some countries in the world, going to have to start thinking like that? I mean, I completely accept what you say about the US being so important, but if the US keeps saying to everybody else, I don't like you, I mean, at some point, don't you walk away?
You know, the elephant in the room in Nasrec, Stephen, is going to be this multipolar world that is emerging, that Gramsci so correctly defined as the old is dead and the new is struggling to be born. As this new is struggling to be born, you're going to see fractures emerging. You're going to see grouping emerging. And the discussion at Nasrec won't speak precisely to the multipolarity and the new sources of power in this multipolar world. But it will be at the back of everyone's mind. We've seen serious ruption during the last 2 weeks around the motor industry because of Nexperia nationalization by the Dutch government and retracting. And it nearly put the motor industry in serious problem. That's flexing of muscles that is starting to emerge within this multipolar world. So that's going to be the issue. And I know leaders won't talk about it, but the United States remains a crucial and a very critical role player in crafting this new world order that we're talking about. Without the United States, that new world order will continue to see this kind of divisions and this kind of tensions emerging in terms of resolution of conflict, in terms of the nuclear treaty and so on. So all this proliferation of arms and peace and security issues around the world will be impacted. So there's a need to have everyone in the house, and the United States remains a crucial and important role player.
Dr. Kingsley Makhubela, former diplomat, really do appreciate the time, a risk analyst as well, and a former ambassador.